Oh, shoot. Hey, folks, I'm getting ready today, and one of my favorite YouTube channels is Sabine Hassenfelder. What does she call it? I don't know, but look up Sabine. She'll come up. She always has kind of a wild hair day. A little bit redhead from Germany. And most of the stuff she has is actually pretty honest reporting. She's an eco type, as we would call her over here in the United States. Now, Sabine just did one recently here, and you want to talk about catastrophic stupidity on the economic side, but she's honest on the science side. Now, I'm a natural gas proponent. If you don't want coal or oil, because it's not fossil fuels in the petroleum side. Some jackass sent to me one time, he says, that's oil made from crude oil, not petroleum. Where does petroleum come from, you stupid jackass? Please. So anyway, Sabine's general information that I know of over my almost 64 years is pretty good. But she's an eco. In fact, she even puts up some eco thing. Go here, these people are doing all kinds of projects that are eco. Now, wait a minute. You have a forest where a bunch of animals disappeared. Now they're trying to repopulate them. Did they not disappear naturally? And you're saying that the ecosystem has to be brought back to more diversity? Didn't the other stuff die out naturally? Come on, people. We're fighting your own Darwinism. Please. You say, well, Darwin was genetics. Okay, play the game. Evolutionary Darwinism. Plants, animals, the whole 9 yards, right? So you're screwing around with nature to make it natural? Okay, anyway. You say, well, why would you? No. Please listen carefully. Whether I disagree with the way she looks at how the science affects the world. Okay? And on the political side, where they're asking, stop with the natural gas, stop this, stop that, is bizarre. Okay? When you burn natural gas, you get water vapor and CO2. Yes! Perfect combustion! Imagine that. We do pretty good with propane, too. But to get propane, guess what you have to do? Produce diesel fuel, motor oil. Okay? Now, why do I say this is wonderful? Natural gas. Well, for one thing, we're better off piping it than shipping it. But don't care. Why? Well, you burn bunker oil in the ships to deliver natural gas. To deliver the natural gas, you burn bunker oil, please! I mean, come on! This is where I have to agree with Sabine 10,000%. She says the production of the natural gas and the leaks that come out of it make coal cleaner than natural gas. You say, no, wait a minute. No. That according to their eco-science, everything she says is accurate. CO2 is not a pollutant. I'm sorry, but if I plant corn, it needs CO2! The atmosphere supposedly has 0.4%, or is it 0.04%? Whatever it is, it's below 1%. Let's go with 0.4. You know what they said? Cut that in half and plants die! Come on! CO2 is a pollutant. You're breathing it now. You know what we used to worry about? Now, they're all upset that CO2 is a pollutant from internal combustion. Carbon monoxide kills. If you are exposed to carbon monoxide exhaust in a car for 10 minutes, you need almost about an hour of fresh, clean air to get it out of the body again. And the effects take longer than that to go away. Please! Come on, people! Hydrocarbons? They get a lot lower with natural gas and even propane. Hello? Come on! And now, I'm going to tag Sabine on this, and just hopefully she'll get a little bit out of it. Now, let's play the game here. Okay, I'm on the real world side. I grew up farm boy, okay? Worked out in the construction world where we're trying to clean up them dang diesel engines, but there's a problem. The production of the ceramics, the heavy metals, the sensors, the piping, the urea, for crying out loud, at 32.5%, which craps up, and if it doesn't corrode it, it craps it up because it separates from the water, comes out as crystal. I mean, please, you know the amount of waste and production we have to put stuff together to stop something coming out of an exhaust pipe that the environment's designed to handle. The next time a volcano blows off, think of that one, please. Yeah, I look over here, but I'm looking at me over here. So, you know, it's CO2 is not a pollutant. California, Florida, and other places, the fruit orchards, they blast them with CO2 to feed the plant to improve production. Why? Because green leafy things produce oxygen when they take in CO2, right? CO2, to release the carbon from the oxygen and send out oxygen, O2, right? It separates it too. They need carbon for food, sunlight to convert it. Please. And if you're going to turn around and tell me, don't tell me CO2 is plant food because, oh no, your scientific community taught it to us for 100 years. Don't tell me it's not plant food. You falsify yourself the instant you say that. We have new information. Bull, you have new information. You have improved information. And everything I have seen, from vaccines to pollutants to other sciences, nuclear science, has been so bogus over the last 50 or 60 years that no one knows what to trust anymore. Do I trust science? No. As soon as it comes out, Sabine, I'm going to trust your actual science numbers over any other that I have ever seen or heard, period. Let's put it that way. But your application of them, I have the same problem that you have with the application there, which again, I'm probably in a 50-50 point with you. Now, again, I'm not a scientist, no, but I'm on the practical side to watch this stuff works. I've been asking about the final pollution of catalytic converters for 40 years. We put air pumps on cars before we had catalytic converters. You know what it did? Hey, it brought down pollution. It did. Parts per million. Yeah, but the million units that went out the exhaust, exactly what you were saying, Sabine. We're burning more total fuels. So when she talks about that in a modern vehicle, bigger vehicles burning more fuels, again, Sabine, you're accurate, because I go all the way back to the 60s, where they just blew air in the exhaust, and there was no catalytic converter to cause the reaction with the oxygen in the stream that was coming out too cold to burn. Excuse me. We knew this. Now, that's just getting the absurdity of the end result. We're not talking about the production of an extra belt, V-belt, of rubber, bituminous products, requiring the petroleum and coal to produce it, correct? And to glue it together, the production cycle of that, and the air pump. They call it a thermactor air pump, and a valve, and more bituminous tubing to take it over to a little check valve, so that if the exhaust barked, it didn't come back in and fry that little vein pump in there with carbon veins in it spinning around in there. You're worried about carbon, for crying out loud. How many different vacuum pumps and air delivery systems have we had over the years that did have carbon in it? Because it's an excellent dry lubricant. I mean, please, do you know how many places we produce pollutants? Removing pollutants? So when you get in the first parts, when you're into the scientific numbers, I'm having a grand time with it. When you get into the next step, maybe. But in the final step, you and I have more agreements than we'll ever have. Almost more than the science side, the numbers. It doesn't make any sense, the final result. You are exactly right. Now, a science teacher who went back in and was barking at me because he was a leftist, so much of a leftist, deodorant was anathema to him. Until he figured out later on, did a study himself and found out, you know what, people appreciate something here rather than me stinking like a skunk. He figured that out. Okay, great. And then he started doing a study of the stuff I was complaining about. You're cleaning up the environment by making dirty production. You're using more electricity, more chemicals, more out of the ground materials, meaning more mining, and I kept going through this whole thing with him. And then you have to put it in the substrate to build the ceramic and porcelain and the platinum and the heavy metal, and we kept going. And he came back and he says, just to produce the electrical systems to hook up the sensors negates anything they're doing in production. So trying to reduce exhaust emissions, we've polluted prior to anything that reduction of exhaust pollutions would ever do, going all the way back to the 60s. Please. Can we stop? Don't get me wrong. When he sat there and says, you don't like fuel injection, you don't like electronics. Now, mind you, I just bought a $25 box to plug into the car he had, flip a switch and put it into diagnostic mode and count the beeps to find out what his problem was. Went to a chart, and I was going through a process of one of the earliest troubleshooting diagnostics of electronic systems there ever was. And suddenly he had to calm down. It's not that we don't want to improve the cars and the engines, more efficient, better gas mileage. I don't care. You seem to think that rich people just like blowing gas. Trust me, if Trump doesn't have to pay for it and he can get his jet to fly from Florida to New York to be screwed again, he wants a better jet. Please, stop. Rush said it decades ago. And you say, well, that's different. True. It's different now than then. But we're talking someplace in the 90s. He said when Mount Pinatubo blew off in the 70s, whenever that was, they checked the pollution that came out of that. He said one day, Pinatubo put out more pollution than all of man's industrial histories up into, say, the mid-90s combined. All of our industrial pollution. One day of Pinatubo. But, wait a minute. No, 1 year of Pinatubo was all of mankind. Sorry, I recant. 1 day of Pinatubo was equivalent to man's output in 1 year. Can we please stop playing games? We're polluting more, preventing pollution. Why? And exactly, Sabine, this is the point for you and I again. In a political sense, although I'm quite certain you're on the left and I'm on the right, but when we look at numbers, realistically, we both come to the same conclusion. Politics. There's a lot of stuff that science and manufacturing come together and some brainchild of some engineer in between. And if there's a way for a car manufacturer to save money, put out a car with better fuel economy, and sell it to the public less expense, and make a bigger profit, I guarantee you it will win. What's one of the reasons fuel injection won? Won out? Simplicity. Yeah, they had to play with software, but still, the final production simplicity? Oh, please. Troubleshooting? It's a little squirrely, but still, you don't have to go pulling parts out and testing this and that. You're going in, going clicky, clicky, click, dink. Oh, that code. Oh, wait a minute, I got 4 other codes. Well, now you're in the diagnostic scramble, but still, you're sitting there on the computer being able to draw up the information to do troubleshooting and testing. You're not running around troubleshooting and testing from outside, working all the way in to find out. It's right there at your fingertips for the most part. Better than 50%. That's pretty good in my world. So anyway, folks, go listen to Sabine's and have a jaundiced eye on one side, not both eyes. But at the same time, if you want basic information to work from, and because she's from Germany and often talks about the U.S. because of our size, in general, I'm going to tell you, she does good work. But still, Sabine, please, CO2 is not a pollutant. It's a natural process of even farting when you get down to it. Oh, that's methane. Yeah, it is methane. And you're saying it's a worse greenhouse gas than CO2. It is. I'm sorry, girl. We had this scare back when you were a child. It was called the ozone layer. My science teacher looked at us square in the face. She says, we've known about the ozone layer for decades. We've studied it. And she said, you know what's the sad part about it is? We're trying to prevent chemicals from getting in the atmosphere, which is good. But she says at the same time, while we should be watching our pollution, we should have an understanding that the ozone layer opens up cyclically. And what does it do? It burns off offensive chemicals to the atmosphere. It's designed to kill that chlorine atom that goes up in the atmosphere. The same one that the volcanoes of the earth blow off and gas off. That's right, it's bad. It is. And cut back what we can. But if we're going to bankrupt ourselves to do it, we're going to come up with ideas that add another 10% cost to the car that you can't afford. You're going to put a battery car together that costs more before the car ever hits. Before the car's transported from the factory, it's already polluted more. Just assembling the thing and getting it ready for sale. What would the one fellow said there that I can't remember who was interviewing him? Mark Levin or somebody? No, it wasn't Mark. I wish I could remember that one. And the fellow said, I love electric cars, he says. I have one. I own one. But he says, if you want an offset, 100,000 miles minimum. He says, in fact, they just start at 100,000 miles. The electric car starts improving over standard combustion cars of the modern era because of the improvements. And he says the problem is by that time you've probably replaced the battery, which means you've gone backwards again. So you have to go to 150 or 200,000 miles and waste the second battery before you actually even get close. He says, so all in all, he says the total Sabine, your excellent point, the final and total pollution for an electric car, it polluted back here while your internal combustion engine is still racking it up. And when they used to allow junkyards more often, you know something else that happened? When they keep talking about recycling, junkyards allowed recycling. What happened? A lot of junkyards had to go out for one main reason here in New York, taxation. If they took the part off the car and stuck it on a shelf and put it in an inventory location, they had to pay taxes on it, real property taxes on it, inventory taxes, every single year until that part was sold. Why? Because they had it on record and the feds knew it. So they taxed something that if they left it on the car or threw it in a bucket over in a corner and it wasn't inventoried, they didn't have to pay taxes on it. They could sell it at a lesser price. But when the feds got through with their taxation, and the state here in New York, a new part was cheaper than buying that used part. Recycling, you say? We could have done that easier a long time ago. Just saying. And some of these electronics are coming out here, gold, silver, platinum in them. Heavy metals, precious metals. What are we doing to ourselves? Please. And I say this back with tractors. You know those tractors they have in those convoys? I mean, more power to them. Maybe that's actual real world. When our representatives fail us in a representative republic, that's the design of the representative republic, that the population shows up and gives them a democratic finger. That's great government and great population. Go, boys. Tractors and trucks. Shut them down. We'll take care of ourselves out here. Thanks. The idiocy. Here in New York and the feds, they used to fine guys for rebuilding an old truck that they owned or bought inexpensively. Go through it back to back, refurbish everything, upgrade it, update it as they could afford, and put the truck on the road. And they would not allow them on certain job sites because it wasn't a newer emissions vehicle. It was a recycled one running in better shape with an upgraded engine, upgraded clutches, upgraded transmission, upgraded. Were they trying to avoid? Yes, they were trying to avoid the fake emissions crap. Please. You know how many catalytic converters are on your average vehicle now? Trucks and tractors in particular. Actually, 3 catalytic converters in a DPF that dwarfs the other converters in its size in ceramics. Dwarfs. Look at the one box they have. They call it on the trucks. They put a great big huge pollution control box on the side of the truck to run exhaust through. What's the efficiency in that? Because it has to carry it, and it takes more fuel to carry it. Your car has more stuff on it to carry with catalytic converters. 2, 3, 4, normal. Not even in a performance vehicle. Some of the performance vehicles back in the 80s and 90s or 90s in particular, had 6, 8. Please. You know where I'm going with this? The same thing I always do. Let the markets develop. We'll pay for what works. The government's just taxing and pressing us into oblivion. Could we have more nuclear power, please? Germany has plenty of coal. Hey. You know what's funny? Proper combustion. Oh, my glasses are in here. Proper combustion, trying not to crush them. Proper combustion is water vapor and CO2. We used to think that was a great thing years ago if we could get down there. Now all of a sudden it's a pollutant. Really? Seriously? We know the same information that CO2 gets chewed up by our plants. Plants put out CO2 when they go dormant in the winter. This is the Northeast. Duh. The Northern Hemisphere. It's not a pollutant. God help us. But the amount of extra CO2, but carbon monoxide, deadly gases. I asked years ago because they stopped talking parts per million until you get into specifics. But if you're burning more fuel, and I've been asking this for 30 years, if you're burning more fuel each step of pollution control, how can you be accurate? And they can't unless they measure parts per million, and more million units are going out the engine. So the total pollution, Sabine's excellent point, is as bad or worse as if they'd have left it alone. I mean, trust me, these construction guys, if you can put a turbo on and an aftercooler and clean that exhaust pipe up and still put more power out, they are in, baby. Why? Because they're rebuildable. Recycle. That's my message for the day. We've been recycling since before I was born in 1960. Autoclave, anyone? Glass bottles? Rant done. Peace out.